Now, a California cop is cleared of any criminal wrongdoing for shooting and killing a homeless black man in 2020. Deputy Eduardo Duran and his partner, Deputy Jonathan Israel, suspected Kurt Andreas Reinhold was jaywalking and approached him. Reinhold said he was not jaywalking, and Duran and his partner eventually placed him on the ground. During the encounter, Israel said Reinhold was reaching for his gun. His partner, Deputy Duran, shot and killed Reinhold. The Reinhold family says Kurt was mentally ill and not reaching for gun, but flailing for help. The family is suing, claiming the homeless outreach team and the sheriff's department is, quote, ill-equipped to deal with mentally ill subjects and disproportionately targets and detains persons of color in Orange County. And again, that's in California. Brianna, it feels like today we're just hitting everybody with stories about how police and the systems and institutions that are otherwise here to protect us, or at the very least serve us, are harming us time and again. Oh, I can anticipate there may be some who think that we traffic in radicalism who would say, well, we're just cherry picking all of the bad stories. But it feels to me more that we are documenting as we said earlier with Mr. Ruff, the pattern and practice of law enforcement officers when it comes to their treatment of black folks all throughout this United States. How do you see this? Are we cherry picking the bad stories? You can feel free to be honest about us if we are just doing something out of line or out of step here.
I think that, Black America in itself has a lot of bad stories and it needs to be highlighted. And I think these are issues that are not even nearly talked enough. So, we can concentrate on, police doing ill will to the Black community. But within this story particularly, I want to highlight the mental health aspect because we've seen it time and time again. And I'm so sorry, I can't remember because there's a lot of these that go on in a lot of different states. But there was a child that was mentally ill, and they were actually calling the police just for mental health aspects. And it ended up where that child got killed because there's not enough teaching within police force in how to respond to mentally ill people. And I will specifically say, as someone who lived in Los Angeles, not Orange County, but, not too far from Skid Row, and how they treated homeless people. And so that within itself is a problem, right? And so in the California culture of what I've seen, even going up to Northern California, of being able and being for it to be culturally right in California to pick with the homeless. And we've seen where, we've seen in Atlanta where they take the random arrest of people homeless, or they see legislation comes in that panhandling is illegal, so now we can pick them up. And so there's a lot of issues within homelessness in itself. And a lot of people who are homeless do have mental health issues, or more than likely they would not be homeless. There's a huge aspect. There's a lot we can go into it in the sense of hard to take care of them as a family, finding those resources, and going back to one of the Minneapolis is the key thing, if we can say, of why we started the movement of defunding the police. There's a lot of funding in the police department that could be allocated elsewhere to help for these issues. But if you go through the larger story of this particular problem, he said he was jaywalking. Then we realized he wasn't. But he was talking to the officer. And even if you heard what was said on the body cam, he was already wanting to instigate, right? And that's the problem in itself. Thinking, oh, well, this is going to be innocent. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And this person who isn't in the right mental state is fighting back because they're like, what's going on? I'm just walking. And they're like, oh, no, you're jaywalking. He goes, no, I'm not. And yes, he should not have been stopped, first of all. And the fact that this police officer has gone off because they said he handled his gun, he shouldn't have been stopped in the first place. They picked on him because there was a red light and they were crossing over on a red light, and he shouldn't have. But really, they were just trying to pick on someone, and that's a problem in itself. We don't see enough of the stories where police are actually there in time of need and helping our community. And so, I mean, for the whole cherry picking thing, I don't know, even if we are, the fact that this is happening and we can pick so many instances in just this one day of recent is a problem in itself.
Monique, I think about that, and you've worked in around municipal governments and things of the sort. Ruth Gilmore, the prison abolitionist, says that what we do when we warehouse people in prison is ultimately throwing away those waste people, those people that we don't want to be seen. Our homeless populations in so many of the various cities in the United States, we try to push them as far to the margins as we can because cities want to put their best foot forward and look as presentable as they can. Is there a better way that cities can then deputize or engage their resources, their law enforcement officers, if they're going to use those mental health professionals, social workers or care workers, if we have them in their cities? Is there a better way to engage our vulnerable houseless population and our mentally ill population that does not have to result in these types of violent encounters?
Well, those are two different things, right? So, what happens with the homeless population where there isn't the presence of mental illness really involves people who are absent housing and the need to create additional spaces that are safe for them to be temporarily while they are getting back on their feet. And some cities have great programs for that, others do not. So we model the good ones. But where police encountering a mentally ill person is concerned, there should be specific units. There are mental health professionals and rapid response units that should always be called. They should always be called when you're encountering someone that you believe is having a mental challenge, or when a family member is saying that they're having some sort of psychotic break. Because if you get an officer in close proximity with another person and all they have to use is their taser or their gun, then you best believe there's going to be drastic consequences. So the officer being cleared is because of a decision that at the time that he used the gun, that was the justified thing to do. Nobody backs all the way up to understand that the entire scenario did not have to happen, should not have happened. And overall, it is a dehumanization of Black bodies. I've said this on the show over and over and over again. We are not seen as human because when we are seen as human, we are treated with respect, even when it is suspected that we are doing something wrong. That is the obligation of law enforcement, and none of that was met in this case.
Monique, I do want to push back on something that you said. You kind of separated those two issues of the difference regarding those who may be without homes and those who may be mentally ill. But we do know that an overwhelming number of our houseless population are folks who struggle with mental health, substance abuse challenges, and that substance abuse is directly related to their mental health challenge. And so in those ways, if we separate those things, aren't we making it more difficult for us to address the true solutions by separating them?
No, because what an officer does on the street is one thing, and what we do with the unhoused, whether they have medical issues or not, whether it's a drug issue or whether it's another mental health challenge, oftentimes when you provide housing facilities that are full service facilities, then they're getting the care that they need. They're getting opportunities for therapy. They're getting opportunities for a room for AA meetings. All of those things are involved in transitioning a homeless person from the streets to successfully being in society. So cities that do that well have all of it included. But my point is none of it should be happening at the hands of law enforcement. That the way that the homeless population is treated, whether it is with regard to housing or mental health challenges or drug abuse, none of that should be at the hands of the police. And when police encounter someone on the street, whether they are homeless or not, if there is mental illness afoot, or if you suspect they're drunk, or something that's causing them to act not in their right mind, the very first thing to do is take space, unless they are unsafe, like unsafe to themselves, about to harm themselves, take space and call for a triage unit that knows what to do in that circumstance. A net is not a gun. A net could have solved that.
So I just want to, I'm
Go ahead,
sorry,
Brianna.
I just want to push back a little bit too. Monique, I totally hear what you're saying and agree that the police is not the solution. I am just wondering, I guess, because of my lack of knowledge in the states that I've lived in, what would you say would be the model cities that have this and the triage to call? Because of the ones I've lived in Los Angeles, Miami, DC, and New York, and of what I've seen, and those are major cities. What I've seen is mostly the police handling that. So if they were to step back and give space, where, who would they call, and is that already in place, or are you saying that we need to distribute those funds to somewhere else where that they can take back some space and call that triage?
So the EMTs are trained in how to handle a person that's having mental health challenge. And to me, I believe that the EMTs are a better call, or a call that should come from the police if they're encountering that. But in places like DC, Houston, Baltimore, Boston, there are rapid response units within the police department that handle mental health issues. And so they're called different things in different spaces. But when you are in that environment where you are dealing with someone, we've seen cases where someone refuses to answer the door. We talked about that on this show a couple of weeks ago, where if they had just left the man alone, called some mental health specialists, worked their way in that way, then he would still be alive right now. But they insisted as law enforcement on doing the only things that they're trained to do, which is secure the threat, secure perimeters, shoot to kill. It's, they have a shorter list of things that they're able to do. But if you look at where housing is concerned, even the District of Columbia, which last year was having a tremendous problem, at pandemic time, year before last, was having a problem with the unhoused, but many of them would stay around where the shelters are, waiting for an opportunity to go in because there are services and programs available. The issue is capacity. And so that is a way that funding has to be allocated federally, statewide, and locally in order to ensure that people who need it have the help they need when they need it, so that they are safe and off of the streets.
We hold a great deal of optimism that what Monique offers as a suggestion can come to fruition and save lives, but we are sadly reminded about exactly what happened in 2016 in Miami, Florida, when mental health therapist Charles Kinsey was shot by police when he was tending to his autistic patient who police interpreted as a threat.
Back to that Roland Mark unfiltered video in just one moment.
Time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice
to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am Roland with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?